I just have to ask you, not long ago, I was very proud to receive the Allyship Award from the Simon Wiesenthal organization in Toronto. And it was there that I had some time and watched your presentation at the Oxford Union. I've been invited to speak there this summer. You made a post after that. You said the experience of speaking at the Oxford Union last night was sobering. It had been packed with aggressive and closed-minded people, including the president, who invited us to speak on a warped motion and attempted at every stage to undermine us. The level of support for terrorists and actions was chilling. And you went on to say that many Jews that were going to attend told you that they just feared being there. And I watched your entire speech, which was, I thought, very courageous. And I thought you were a study in patience and self-control, because they were baiting you at every turn, calling you every name in the book, and you didn't take the bait. You stayed on point, and I just wondered if you could opine on that experience in the face of such hatred, name-calling, and attacks from people that just seemed ignorant. They're just uninformed. You seemed to stay calm in the face of it all. What was it like?
Well, firstly, thank you for your kind words about it. It was an extraordinary experience. I was a student myself as an undergraduate many years ago in Oxford University, and it wasn't exactly like that when I was there. But there were hints already, even back then, of anti-Semitism in that institution, the Oxford Union, the debating society, as I mentioned in that speech. And you know, I've been, as much as I was upset by what happened there and disgusted by that behavior, I've also been enormously reassured by the response that it's had from around the world, because the speech I gave, my response to that torrent of abuse that I got for 2-3 minutes solid, that literally drew the whole thing to a halt at one point, has been viewed by over 12 million people just on my Instagram account. It really struck a chord, and that number is going up literally every day. People saw what happened and were disgusted, and people also saw two sides of a debate, if you could call it that, about Israel. And one side went there to present their view, their analysis, their case based on facts and based on calm and rational discussion. And that's what I went there to do. So that is what I did, whatever they threw at me. And they really certainly threw as much as they could at me in terms of the verbal abuse and the screaming and disruption. But that's what I went to do. And I'm a great believer in discussion and debate, civil discourse. These are all important things. And I think that perhaps not so many people in the world do agree with me on that anymore, especially in university campuses. But it's therefore my job, your job, all of our jobs. And I hope if you do go to the Oxford Union and speak, you can drive this message home there yourself as well, both through your words and your example. If they see people who are willing to listen and discuss and debate respectfully and even disagree with one another respectfully, perhaps that will be an example for how to act and behave in the future. Perhaps I'm naive in thinking that, but I believe that that is one way we must do it. And I will say that I was not afraid of those people. I'm not afraid of bullies, and I'm not afraid of people who try to shout me down. The very thing that triggered off the main torrent of abuse in my speech was simply a section where I talked about facts, statistical facts about the amount of aid that had been going into the Gaza Strip during that difficult war period. Right. That is what triggered it. So if facts were what triggered those people, we're really in trouble. But those people don't represent all of Oxford University. I don't think they even necessarily represent the whole of the Oxford Union membership. They represented a very specific group of people who I believe were handpicked to be in that room and positioned to cause as much trouble as they could. But either way, the world saw them for who they are, and I hope they saw me for who I am and the rest of my team in that debate. And slowly, all we can do is speak the truth, go out there, spread the message, make our case, try to persuade people. That's what I do in my work every day. And I sometimes reform my ideas myself, listening to others. And I think that's an important aspect of all of our lives as well, that we must keep open minds, we must discuss together in good faith and honestly, based on fact and logic and morals and good ethics. And hopefully truth and light will win out if we can engage in that way. And part of that is to punish and with the full force of the law and justice those who abuse the systems that we have in place in the West, those who abuse our very systems to attack us and work against us. That has to end, whether it's in a university debating society, in Oxford University or anywhere else, or whether it's at the highest level in governments or in police or in society at large. We have to stand up to it. So that's really what I hope is the message of the Oxford Union, but also of everything that any of us can do in our lives. We must lead by example.
Well, Jonathan, I'm going to have to vent for just a few seconds. I kind of wake up every day shocked at some of the things that I'm seeing in America, some of the things I'm hearing at elite universities in the United States, things that I never in my lifetime thought I would see and hear on these campuses. The administration of these elite universities that, in my opinion, are supporting and, in some instances, encouraging demonstrations, groups, and protests that are just outright support of known terrorist groups. What I'm hearing from some of these students and outside agitators within these student groups with the anti-Semitic rhetoric that I'm hearing in support of what started out to be Palestine and thinly veiled, and not very long into it, just straight up support of Hamas. I've been shocked by that. You're seeing it on that side of the ocean in Israel and the UK and that part of the world. What do you make of this? How is this happening in our lifetime?
It's difficult for me to witness it too. I mean, I'm a Jewish person. I'm a proud Jew. And my father was a Holocaust survivor. He was a hidden child in Italy, hidden by nuns in a Catholic orphanage for 9 months with his younger brother. So I've always been very alert to anti-Semitism and to threats against Jews, but also wider threats against our Western way of life and Western civilization, which ultimately is founded upon a foundation of Judeo-Christian values. So what's been happening since October the 7th has been deeply shocking to me, as much as to everybody who's been watching it. I think it's tragic that so much of the world seems to have embraced anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, so readily. And the thing that triggered it, that enabled them to do so, that gave them somehow license in their minds to do so, was the most horrific slaughter and attack of Jews since the Holocaust. Of all the things that could make people think Jew hatred and persecution of Jews was okay now, you wouldn't have thought that it would be the slaughter of Jews by a jihadi Islamic organization in the land of Israel, the historic homeland of the Jews. So there are so many layers to what's going on that it is really difficult for all of us to see it. And it has permeated not just the education world, but it's out on the streets. We've seen these mob-like riots, these riot-like protests going on in the UK, around the world, around Europe. We've seen it in the National Health Service here, constant reports of persecution or prejudice against Jewish patients and Jewish doctors and staff even. We're seeing it in schools. I literally, just last weekend, was meant to go and speak at an elite private school in Wales, in South Wales here, which is a school that has been for years educating international students from around the world. It educates the Spanish royal family, but also carefully picked refugees from war zones who they give scholarships to try to encourage citizenship of the world, coexistence and peace. And they cancelled me a few days before the talk because they said that my articles that some of the children had read made me unsafe to be in the school. Now, that's absurd. That school, UWC Atlantic, was founded by a refugee Jew from Germany who came to the UK, founded that school and Gordonston, where King Charles III was educated, precisely with a view to building a unified worldwide youth who would be able to live together peacefully and understand each other's positions. And they cancelled me, a Jew, who was going to go there and speak about Israel, anti-Semitism, and my experiences as a journalist of those things. So the world is really in quite a depressing place, I think, when we think of it in those terms.
Well, it clearly is, and it seems to me to be, at a minimum, an absence of critical thinking. But I think it goes even further than that. Homeowners, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, then this is for you. Scammers are stealing titles, and your equity is the target. Criminals forge your signature, and just like that, your home title can be transferred out of your name. That's why I partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Phil at HometitleLock.com and you'll get a free title history report. Plus, you'll get a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Phil. I've invited those that are pro-Palestinian onto my platform, along with the pro-Israeli side. And when I listen to the Palestinian supporters, their position is this was retaliation, that October 7th was retaliation for years and years of oppression, years and years of holding these people in prison and calling Israel an apartheid state that was oppressing the Palestinians. And then they start doing the math and saying, look how many Palestinians have been killed compared to the number of Israelis that were killed. Grade my paper here. I want to know if I'm looking at this too simplistically, but first off, when I look at what happened on October 7th, this wasn't an act of war, it was a war crime. These invaders into Israel came in and attacked largely non-combatants. They came in high on drugs, for one thing. They attacked women, children, the elderly, infants in their cribs. I mean, I've been to the kibbutz. I've seen the blood dried an inch deep in infant cribs and splattered on the walls. I've seen the footage that 99% of America or the world have not seen, that the IDF shared with me under very close guard. And people say, well, why don't they just show that to the world? You really can't do that.
Well, Dr. Phil, let me just say, thank God for you and people like you who can so clearly express what you just did. And you are also one of those people that made a point of going to Israel to witness what happened, as I have in my work. You know, I've walked through the same kibbutzim as you. I've walked through the same horrible, horrible homes with blood sticky on the floor still, the burnt out homes from the thermobaric weapons that the Palestinian terrorists used to not just kill, but bake, roast alive people in their own homes. They attacked, they kidnapped, they tortured, they raped. They did everything you could think and more to those people, many of them in their own homes, in their beds. They tortured and killed children in front of their mothers, mothers in front of their children. They live streamed it so that it would psychologically torture the friends and family of the people they were killing or kidnapping. So I think it's very important that those of us who have seen that footage, like you and me and others around the world, do talk about it. I agree with you that it would be very hard for many people to stomach seeing it. But I also think on another level, maybe adults of their own free will should see that sort of material if they want to. It's like when you think back to the Holocaust, the idea of seeing the camps as they were liberated, the skeletal people who are being rescued from them, those sorts of images stick in our mind. And unfortunately, I think it's got to a point in the modern day where so many people in the comfort of the US or the UK or around Europe or other places in the world, we live such comfortable lives that we've come to assume that human nature is such that nobody acts barbarically or viciously as the Palestinian jihadi terrorists did on the 7th of October. But the truth is unfortunately far uglier. And so watching that kind of footage and witnessing these things for oneself does remind us that human nature is not automatically good. Not everybody has the same values we do. And those who don't have those values are inferior to us in their values and culture. There is nothing wrong with us saying that the values we hold dear of preservation of life and defending civilians and fighting against that kind of jihadi enemy, that is something we should be proud of. And it is something that we should be able to say is worthwhile and superior to the alternative. And so what I'll say about the situation in Israel is this. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that anything is black and white in that part of the world. And I'm not suggesting that there are not great tragedies going on when innocent people are killed in war anywhere on this planet. So, of course, all of us have emotional reactions to seeing people in Gaza who are suffering as a result of this war. But as you so rightly pointed out, there is no moral equivalence between the deaths of civilians in a war zone and the deaths of those people that the Palestinian terrorists slaughtered on the 7th of October in these circumstances. The Israeli army, and I, like you, have been and visited them. I've been on the air bases. I've been for briefings. I've seen footage that they've shown to me of the strikes they've carried out. I've seen the extraordinary lengths that they go to mitigate civilian casualties. Now, many people will say, so why have there been civilian casualties? We don't yet know any real numbers because the numbers that many have been relying on in the Western media are fed to them by Hamas health authorities in Gaza. And really, Hamas is not an honest player in any regard. But of course, some people have died. Some people have been killed as a result of, as you call it, collateral damage. It's a horrible euphemism, but we have no words really to explain better. But that is not the same as targeting civilians. Israel is not targeting civilians. The Israeli army does go to extraordinary lengths to try to avoid killing civilians. And the reason that there are the number of civilian deaths there are and injuries is that forces like Hamas, a terrorist organization, deliberately draw fire on civilian areas. They hide themselves in their operations under hospitals or schools. Hamas itself was founded in 1987 as a branch off of the Mujama al-Islamiyah, which itself was founded after the Muslim Brotherhood was banned in Egypt and then found fertile ground in Gaza for creating a civilian infrastructure operation. So they deliberately started by setting up schools and kindergartens and universities like the University of Gaza, but with the express intention of, in time, using the unity and network they created through those civilian means to create a violent jihadi organization which would strive for an ummah, a worldwide Islamic state. And I think that people who don't know the history of those organizations, people who don't know the ideology of those organizations, they can just go and read the Hamas founding charter. It's available online. Anyone can go and read it. It's very, very clear what they believe in. They believe in killing Jews. It's not about land. It's not about occupation. It's not about better electricity or humanitarian aid. These are not the things that they talk about in their founding documents and in their ideological texts. What they talk about is jihad, holy war against Jewish people. And they don't stop at Jews. Fundamentalist Islam, which is a threat to the whole Western world, is actually set on killing first the Saturday people, as they say, and then the Sunday people. So we are all in this fight together internationally. In that regard, that's why Israel deserves our wholehearted support in the West, both in the United States and here in the UK and across Europe, because the problems that Israel is not just facing, but facing down at the moment, are the very problems that we are also facing. And if we don't learn from Israel and we don't help Israel now, we will find that we may ourselves be facing these problems and not know how to cope with it.
How did it spin so quickly? Because when October 7th happened, I think the general response of the world community was, this was horrific. I think the knee-jerk reaction of the world community was, oh my gosh, this was terrible. And the footage that was found on cell phones that were left behind with a lot of those that had been killed, and some of the body cam footage, GoPro footage, whatever the invaders had and started streaming or posting up on the internet and bragging about, people saw and thought, oh my God, these people are total psychopaths. I mean, they have no empathy. I saw videos of invader calling home, I killed 10 Jews. Oh my, it was like they'd won the lottery. I mean, they were up so high, sky high, and the parents said, I can't wait for you to come home. Oh, I'm not coming home. I'm doing all of this. And so celebratory. And I think people were appalled. But in a matter of days, it seemed to start turning. Why? How did that happen? Why did it turn so quickly?
I wish I knew the answer to that question, because it's one I've been asked a lot. And in my work, I get asked very often, what is the root cause or the reason for anti-Semitism or hatred of Jews? To such an irrational level, as you say, when you look at things like that, to then hate the victims of it is bizarre. And I don't know the answer. I mean, there are many possibilities. I think that level of racism, of hatred against Jews is like a mental illness. But like many mental conditions, I think there's a degree of contagion as well, and fashion. So I think that when some people, especially younger people who are more impressionable, who are more passionate, who are more activated by political causes surrounding them, I think sometimes when they hear it, and they hear it with such fervor and enthusiasm from those around them, they can be easily led towards that. I think that also it's problematic that these groups like Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad or Hezbollah or any of a number of other groups who are behind these attacks on Israel, not least the Islamic Republic of Iran, the regime there that punishes its own Iranian people as well, most of whom do not wish to be under its rule. All of those groups are very, very good at spreading lies and spreading fake messages and deceptions about what's going on. So those who don't know what's happening are fed a constant flow of that sort of fake news, misinformation, lies, whatever you want to call it. And it becomes very easy to believe. Now, I've always said that the biggest problem in explaining these things is that the truth is very complicated and often quite ugly. So a lot of times, Israel's choices aren't between 1 and 2, good and bad, black and white. Often the choices that it has to make are between 2 quite horrible options, and they have to choose the least horrible. One good example is in the negotiations for the release of the hostages. Hamas and the other Palestinian terrorists that burst over the border deliberately took as many hostages as they could, because they know that this is their strongest weapon against Israel. So they took hundreds, children, infants, elderly people, Holocaust survivor, people in their 80s. And we know, that the Bibas children came back dead, for example. Now, those children didn't deserve that. But what the Hamas terrorists know is that Israel, given the choice of getting back even the corpses of the kidnapped, but especially those still alive, and releasing hundreds or thousands of Palestinian prisoners who were in jail for having carried out horrific mass killings, suicide bombings, or other acts of terrorism in the past, Israel all too often will choose to release those violent, ideological, jihadi killers, knowing that they will act again in that way in order to get back the hostages. Those are two dreadful options, bad and worse. And it's really hard to know which one should choose. There was no good option for them to choose. But of course, a country like Israel, which is led by a very moral commitment to its people to save lives, to save their lives, to rescue them if they're taken hostage, made the difficult decisions it has.
You're certainly a good example of leading by example. You certainly have a fan and a supporter in me, and I was very proud of the way you delivered the message, factually, empirically supported, and I thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. This has been enlightening as well as inspirational, so thank you. I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully very soon, and I hope we can talk some more about this in the not too distant future.
With pleasure, and thanks so much for having me, and thanks for all that you do.
Well, thank you. We'll talk soon. So long.